Hey everybody, Eli Hoff, Ben Frederickson, your eye on the Tigers crew. We're talking a little bit of Mizzou's bowl game options. The Tigers' regular season is over. They finished 9-3, capped it off with a snowy regular season finale win over Arkansas, and now comes the waiting game for Missouri. It'll find out which bowl it's in, which team it faces. That announcement will come out Sunday afternoon. It's I think supposed to be between 1 and 4 p.m. It's a window depending on how long it takes the conferences and the TV networks and the bowls and the schools to all figure this out of who's going to play who, where, when, and all that fun stuff. Uh, it, we've written about Mizzou's options, and it seems like opponent is more important than location to Mizzou. But Ben and I have each done all the math ourselves and figured out what the best matchups for Mizzou would be in the bowl game. These, we're doing the hard part for everybody else, just giving these away. Ben, for you, who is the opponent you want to see Mizzou play, and what's the bowl game you would want to see them play, and what's going to be the best matchup for the Tigers?
Well, if Greg Sankey calls me up and says, as the commissioner of the SEC, I'm asking you what you think is best. I would say, is Illinois on the table? And you'd probably say no, they're going to get one of the higher ranked SEC teams, maybe in the Citrus Bowl. So after that, I would say, well, put Missouri against Kansas State. And that to me, it fits the description of what Mizzou AD Laird Beach told you, Eli, is that the opponent really matters here. The idea of trying to sort out which bowl is better at this point with the ones that Mizzou is going to be eligible for, there really isn't one that's better. You can base it off a location or where fans might want to play. And I'll kind of table the talk of a big brand like a dented Michigan team that has little to play for after winning its Super Bowl of its game against Ohio State during a lackluster year, and say, give me an opponent that actually to me would be very interesting based off of history, but also the fact that they played twice in the past two seasons to very different outcomes in somewhat, you know, trend-setting games for those teams in each of the past two seasons. I would like to see Missouri meet Kansas State again. There's not as many options where that can happen, but one of them is in the Texas Bowl, and there is examples of the Texas Bowl including two teams, neither of which is from Texas. Now, usually the Texas Bowl has a Texas team in it, but if you go back to 2022, you'll find an example of two non-Texas teams in the Texas Bowl. Missouri is heavily interested in recruiting Texas. That gets more important as Texas is now in the SEC. I don't know what bowl games really do for recruiting these days, but the coaches always say it helps. So give me Missouri versus Kansas State in the Texas Bowl for a third meeting between the Tigers and the Wildcats in each of the past three seasons, and throw in a little intrigue, maybe, of Missouri obviously being on the hunt for a transfer quarterback, and lots of speculation wondering if Texas's starting quarterback could be flirting with the portal at some point this offseason. So sign me up for that intrigue. I think fans would think that was a compelling game.
You chose to knock my pick in your answer there, so now I have to double down on it. I think the type of matchup that Mizzou's looking for is something like getting Michigan in the Music City Bowl. That bowl game it's an SEC Big Ten matchup, so it's obviously going to be one of the maybe more attractive ones just because you're going to get two bigger programs in there. I don't think there's a year in which you've got a better shot of beating the defending national champions than this year, given what this Michigan team is. So, look, that takes away from what this game is on the field a little bit, but it's pretty clear these bowl games aren't actually about what's going on the field. If you want a good game on the field, take Mizzou against whoever loses the Big 12 championship game this weekend. Maybe if that's Arizona State or BYU, something there. But no, I think getting a brand like Michigan coming off their national championship, Mizzou, that's a very winnable game for them. They could say they've beat both sides of the rivalry, Ohio State in 23 and Michigan in 24. That's something that if you're going to get a bowl game win, at least it gives a program that. So I think sort of a legacy type game like that, I think would appeal to Mizzou. But there are other Big Ten teams you can make the case for. Someone like Nebraska, getting the old rivalry going. Iowa may not be the most attractive team to play a game against, but they've had a decent season. I think there are some good options from the Big Ten Conference that Mizzou could get.
I will say this, it would be fascinating to hear what Eli Drinkwitz might have to say if he's able to beat Michigan, maybe about beating Ohio State in last year's bowl game and then beating the team that Ryan Day's Ohio State program can never seem to beat in a bowl game. I'm sure he could come up with some zingers for that, especially given the time off between the bowl game. He could really work up some press conference quips. So I see your point. A lot of Mizzou fans would love to see the battle of the block M's here. And I think maybe that would move the needle more for some fans than kind of the recent compelling rivalry of the K-State game. For my dollar, it would be Kansas State, but I think a lot of folks, if they were given the vote, they'd probably pick your way and say Michigan.
Well, and I think Eli Drinkwitz would be in favor of getting to use the word "blue bloods" in his pregame locker room speech for the second year in a row going into a bowl game. Ben and I just recorded a new episode of our Eye on the Tigers podcast. We talk some Mizzou bowl matchups in there. We talk some Mizzou football, some Mizzou basketball. So be sure to check out that podcast. It's available here at stltoday.com and wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, you can read all of our work and in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and stltoday.com, covering this bowl announcement, Mizzou, Kansas, and basketball this weekend, the transfer portal, recruiting, all the crazy things going on in college sports this time of year. You can find in one place, stltoday.com. Thanks for listening, folks.